It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Yay.
Huzzah.
Fantastic.
That's like the third week in a row you've been fantastic.
Well,
It's
Which is
a
why you quit.
fantastic month.
Which is why you quit using great, as I recall. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to help here.
Yeah.
I'll have to check my Thesaurus again.
Well, don't change it till after next week, because it'll be Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
Boo. I am booing myself.
This
This is going to be an interesting week, I think. Well, I hope everybody's doing okay out there. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
My corner of the galaxy. Well, yeah, it's been a pretty boring week. Knocked out a couple of trades out of my pile. Going back through some Harrow County and some Kill or Be Killed. Keeping it light, you know. And,
Yeah.
family stuff over the weekend, so nothing exciting there. Haven't really watched anything on TV, because I don't. I don't know, yeah, not much. Pretty blah.
Okay. And now, 15 minutes with Liz.
Well, I don't have too much to talk about because what I've been reading we're not talking about yet. So, and I will definitely have a lot of questions about that when we do start talking about it. So.
Oh, are you talking about a secret project?
A secret project.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Da-da-da-da. I want to give myself plenty of time to make sure.
Speaking of which, I probably need to pull that back out and glance
Right.
back over. It's been a while since I read it.
Dust it off. Like I said, I guess I can't say anything.
I find that very hard to believe. Come on now.
Well, I don't even think that's 5 minutes. Come on.
I'll have some stuff on that. No, I've been watching a lot of TV, and like I said, and reading that. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but Hulu is doing a show called The Act, and it's like totally twisted. I mean, it's not something you can binge watch. I mean, now you can watch 3 episodes, but they're releasing episodes like every Tuesday at 11. And it's based on a true story. But the girl, I think her name's Zoe King, who plays the... I just blanked on what the little girl's name is. Gypsy. It's so spot on because, of course, Gypsy, her mother did fake a lot of her illnesses, but there was something really wrong with her. So just the mannerism of the way she would do her fingers and, you know, bite at her lips and that kind of thing has just been perfect. And when she cries, you feel it. You really want to cry along with this girl. And like I said, you know, knowing the story, how it played out in the news, to think this little girl is in prison for enduring her torture is just kind of shows you how whacked our justice system is, you know. I think time served, you know. But yeah, if you haven't seen that one's pretty good. And then I've been watching, it's an older show, and I don't know what got me back into watching it, but Criminal Minds. Mainly because of Matthew Gray Grubler. He plays Reed in there, but he's done a lot of animated shows. All-Star Superman. He was in, I think he was in Mask of the Phantom. But he usually does the voice of the Riddler. He's voiced Jimmy Olsen before. But starting to watch Criminal Minds again was like, didn't he do this? So I've watched All-Star Superman. It's called ADD watching, you know. But.
Dang.
Yeah. And too much Disney this week. Too much. I'm getting tired of the mouse.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But, you know, I will have to say, I have to brag on the little girl I watch, that the Disney that she's been drawn to so far is kind of cool because it's not the typical prince comes and saves the princess. It's like Frozen, where they save themselves, and Moana, where all she had to do is believe in herself and she did it. There was no man swooping in and rescuing. It was all believe in yourself and you can do anything. So I am liking those choices she's making. Which she probably doesn't see that, but it'll be there when she needs it.
Yeah.
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 That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And, you know, I say that for a little girl. It's not just little girls, it's boys too. You know, it just, you can do anything you believe in. And then I'm getting ready for my grandbaby. So.
Oh, that again. God.
Yeah. I told her, I said, you need to quit being so selfish and share her with all of us.
Hey.
It's not fair.
You don't want that kid coming out early.
No.
You want her to be fully cooked when she comes out.
No. She was term last Friday, so.
That's just a guess.
Yes. I mean,
That's just a guess. That's all those things are. They don't know.
anytime.
They're
And
not,
I told her
they're not the
not
boss
to have,
of her.
But I told her not to have her on the first. I said, because nobody will believe you. My poor niece, Bree, she's the one who always comes to the meetups and everything. Her birthday is April 1st, and when my sister called me, it was like, yeah, right. You know, this isn't even funny. You're not in labor. So it took a couple of hours before I finally realized this isn't a prank. She's really in labor. There's a baby on the way. Yeah. Well, you don't know how many idiots do that, you know?
Oh, I know. Believe me, I saw several posts on social media Sunday, the 31st, saying, okay, when tomorrow comes, don't do these types of jokes. And it was that kind of, and, you know, included that and several others, just like, don't do that. And, like, the fact that you have to do that is pretty freaking sad.
Yep. Well, back when Bree was born, we didn't have Facebook. This was phone calls, so it wasn't. You weren't bringing everybody in the world in on your joke, you know, the way it is now. To me, I know it's not funny to people who can't have babies, and here's all these people joking about it. You know?
Yeah, that was one of the things I saw a lot.
Yep.
That kind of thing. And for the record, that was some of the weakest jokes I saw for April Fools. I'm like, I saw some, especially some of the posts from news sites. I'm like, you know, you're supposed to make this somewhat believable, please. When I'm looking at this going, are you kidding me? No. Yeah.
But, you know, in defense, it's kind of hard to prank people in today's times. I mean, come on. Look at our current situation right now. If somebody would have told you 20 years ago, oh, by the way, Donald Trump's going to be in office, you would have been like, ha, 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 April Fools. I mean, come on. You know, it's hard to prank people because the most shocking, outrageous, unbelievable things are actually truth nowadays.
Yeah.
How do you think The Simpsons became such a great seer of the future? Because they were just making up the craziest shit they could think of
Yeah.
and putting it out there. And 20 years later, it's all coming true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, they planted their own seed on that one. But still.
Well, I'm not sure if I've told this on the podcast. I'm sure I mentioned it to you guys. Mike probably heard it from the same source that I heard it from, which was a mutual friend. And I had told this recently to my mother, and she couldn't believe it. There was an episode of Laugh-In, and if you're not familiar with the show, it was a 60s comedy show. It was a sketch comedy show, and it was pure 60s. I mean, a lot of that material is so dated it's not even funny. But one of the ones they did, I'm not sure if it was every week, but it may or may not be. I don't know. That was where Dan Rowan would do a news headline from the future, and he starts talking about President Ronald Reagan because he was just elected. He was governor of California at the time, and everybody laughed their ass off. And I was like, he became president.
Yeah.
They were laughing about the possibility. I mean, we're talking a decade and a half later. He was the president of the United States, but they were laughing, going, "Oh, that's funny. That ain't gonna happen." So you never know.
Yeah. So what do you come up with to top that?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that because it may happen.
Right. We'll speak it into existence.
Just
So I'll
we
just
said
say
it may
what?
happen.
Brad Pitt shows up on my doorstep and takes me out?
Nice try.
I know, I should have gone for Jensen. He's closer. But yeah, it was some weak sauce this year.
Yeah, some of the stuff I saw was like, come on, guys. You had a whole year to come up with something, and that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Or maybe you didn't take a year. Maybe you used like, oh, God, tomorrow's April Fool's. I got to come up with a joke. Oh, I'll do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they looked in the mirror and they're like, oh, no, joke's on me. Anyways.
Les.
Is Liz's 15 minutes up now?
We'll say yes.
We'll say yes.
This past week I read the collection of stories that DC published several years ago. The book is called Justice League, the World's Greatest Superheroes. This was the Paul Dini and Alex Ross series, which were done in very large formats when they were first released. There were 6 stories that they did, and it's just been so much fun going through these, rereading them, and seeing how they are the basis of some of the upcoming items, mainly the Shazam movie, reading their version of The Spirit of Hope, which was the Captain Marvel episode, and seeing how childlike they presented Billy Batson and Captain Marvel. It was just so much fun to read. It was good stuff. So that's been occupying most of my time this past week, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Sounds pretty cool to me.
Yep. So I guess Les is going to leave this to me, which is fine because I really didn't have anything else to talk about. Les invited me to go to the AGFA screening.
Oh, God, you fell for that again?
Well,
yes, the movies are not all that great, but it's usually a fun experience. And for those if may not be familiar, because I know Les has mentioned it several times in the past, AGFA stands for, was it
American Film Genre Archive.
American Genre Film Archive or Association or something. Anyway. So the premise is I think it's usually the first Monday of the month, if I'm not mistaken, right, Les?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, and for that to fall on April Fool's Day, that's awesome.
Yeah. They will have a special screening, and we do not know what the film is until right before the film starts. So there was a lot of discussion about what this one was going to be, especially since it was going to be April Fool's. And so I show up and Les is there, and there's some discussions and comments about that we were going to hate James Wallace, who's the guy who presents all these every month. So we get in there and we start watching. And Les, maybe because I have not seen this. This was the first time I've noticed this. I don't know if they have been doing it before, and it's something that they've added since the last time I went to one of these with you. But the trailers just before the film that was supposed to give you clues to what the film was going to be, was that the first time they've done that, or have they been doing that for a couple months or a few months?
I believe they started it in January.
Okay.
They ran about 3 different trailers for you, and not necessarily what the movie was going to be.
Well, but the ones for last night, they were. The trailers that they showed was supposed to give you a clue to what the movie was going to be. Yeah. And so I didn't know if that's something they just started. Apparently they did. One trailer was for Truck Taylor. I remember it being Truck, but I remember the second name, the name supposed to be a T as well. I think it's Truck Taylor.
Truck
Turner, which I'd love to see this film. It is Isaac Hayes' black exploitation, and Isaac Hayes is the good guy. He's a bounty hunter, and the villain is played by Nichelle Nichols,
cool.
Who clearly looks like she's doing it for the money.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry.
No. I'm just disappointed. I would have loved to see her embrace it and go nuts with it.
But I still want to see it.
Yeah.
Because it looked crazy weird. The next one was Airport 75, and then the next one was Cocktail. Was there another one in there? Did I miss one, Les? I remember those 3. Was there a 4th one?
There was a 4th one, but I don't recall what it was.
Okay. So anyway, we saw these, and when I saw Cocktail, I started going, uh-oh. So the film starts up, and you see Warner Brothers, the logo, and then you see the Morgan Creek logo and all that. Then the next thing you see is the title, Battlefield Earth. And the joke was, that was the movie. They showed the movie. This wasn't something they were going to start a few minutes and stop and go, yeah, we were just joking. Because apparently they did that with one before where they started up Twilight
Yes.
and showed a few minutes of that and then stop and go, okay. No, actually, this is the film we're going to show. No, the joke was to show Battlefield Earth.
Isn't that kind of a long movie?
It's
a ridiculously long book.
I think our friend Eli Luna, who we talked to after the film, said it was like an hour. It was like 158 minutes. So yeah, it's
all
about
the 2.5 hours. Yeah,
2.5 hours. I had never seen this film before, and I kind of took pride in the fact that I've never seen this film before because I had no interest. I heard everybody complain about the film, and I'm like, yeah, I have no desire. So, yeah, I've seen it now. Wow. I was wondering at some point if Les was going to get tired of hearing me sigh at just how stupid some of the stuff was going on in that film. 'Cause I did. Did you keep count, Les, or did you even notice?
I noticed, but I did not keep count. I was kind of fidgeting in my chair.
Yeah, I kind of moved around a lot more than I usually do for a film. But yeah, I was going, oh God. For a plot, it was eh. The special effects were okay. They were not too bad. I've seen a hell of a lot worse. But oh my God, the script, the acting, oh God. Oh, it's just horrible. Oh.
And if I may,
Go ahead.
at the end, the host came out and he told you various things about the movie, about the writers, the actors, L. Ron Hubbard, who was the writer of the book, and I'm with Mike there because that thing was miserable to get through. But they also talked about when the book came out, you could buy it with a tape, a recorded music.
Yeah, it was a sound. Yeah, there was music for it. Yep.
And this intrigued me, so I went to YouTube and found it, and I sat and listened to it, and it is god awful.
Okay. And the name of that album is
Space Jazz.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry, but I did sit through it, and I just shook my head, going, "Are they that bad? Were they that hard up for money?"
Well, it was. And you talk about the fact that James was talking about was doing a lot of trivia about the film after it was over with. The fact that Travolta, who put up $5 million to make this film made, and he's the only one who defends the film because everybody else who was involved says, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that. I didn't do that film. I wasn't a part of that film. But the fact that Travolta approached Quentin Tarantino about directing it, and Tarantino says, "No, thank you. I don't think I want to do that." That would have been kind of interesting to see him get his paws on that. I don't think it would have saved it, but
I suspect he knew he wasn't going to have any real control if he did.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I saw that film.
I'm sorry.
And I apologize, but
No, it's not your fault.
But just the fact of going to see an AGFA film is well worth the time. And
they have been fun. I mean, or at least the other ones have been.
See, I think
And they,
Go ahead.
I think if they're gonna do an April Fool's thing, they should show a good movie. To turn it around. That's the only way to do it. And I mean, they didn't obviously. They clearly did not go that route this year. But it would have.
Well, and he mentioned that in the past they've always showed a good movie, so they broke traditions this time. And because apparently there was a lot of discussion on how they wanted to handle this, and apparently at one point they were thought about, starting the movie, pulling another Twilight, where they would show a movie that everybody just knows is ridiculously bad, and then stop and go, no, we were just joking. This is what we're actually going to show. And it said, and I think it was James that made the call and saying, no, the joke needs to be that we're actually showing the entire film. And yeah, as much as I hated seeing it, I get that. I get that. I totally get that, and approve. As much as I hated watching that film, because oh god,
it was a stinker.
and it probably could have been worse because it could have been Ishtar.
True.
Have you seen Ishtar?
No, and
Yeah,
No.
I have.
Wow.
well, apparently Les agrees with me, so I guess I'm okay with making that comparison.
Yeah, somebody who's seen it agrees. Okay.
Yeah.
It could have been Out of Africa.
That movie won Oscars, man.
So did Ishtar.
Did it? I thought it just won Razzies.
No, I think it won one.
Well, Battlefield Earth won Razzies.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was mentioned last night too. It basically swept all the categories it was nominated. Forrest Whitaker didn't win one because who is it that won it?
Barry Pepper.
Yeah, co-star in the film won it. For worst actor.
They're stealing Razzies from each other in the movie. That's great.
And then he talked about them coming up with categories like the worst film of the first 10 years or so of the Razzies, and of course that went to Battlefield Earth. It was like they recreated categories for this film to win for being the worst. It's like, yeah.
Dang.
So, yeah. So that's
a thing that you did.
that's a thing.
The upside is next week's bound to be better.
Yeah, you would think. Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, I wanted to mention that here, this is actually going to be happening. It's going to be the following Saturday. So the week that this drops, that Saturday, the 13th, will be our next meet and gab. For you, the geeks that live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Be our next monthly meetup and talk all things in the geek universe. We'll be meeting at Wayne City once again. That's located at 1456 Beltline Road, Suite 120 in Garland. We have all that information on our website, on the events page. We also have a Facebook event made up. So if you're on Facebook, if you go to our page, and go to that event and let us just say whether you're going or interested, so we can kind of have an idea what's going on. And while you're there, if you're not following our Facebook page, by all means follow us. I'm excited about our next meetup because the first three have been fun. I think they've been very successful, and hoping things grow from there. So by all means, come join us and have some fun. Right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For this week, we want to take a couple moments, or a few moments, or an hour or two, and celebrate a milestone for a very successful TV show that still is in reruns all the time. You'll catch them anywhere. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, it's The Twilight Zone. Rod Serling's sci-fi, supernatural, whatever else you want to call it, classic TV show. And doing a little research about this, it was because I had never really heard the origins of how this show came about. And basically, from what I understood, let me see, where was it? He had done some television plays. And of course, this is early days of TV. But he had wrote a pitch called The Time Element. And it was basically that, which actually got later made as an episode of Desilu Playhouse. And it was basically because of that Twilight Zone came to be. Because the plays that he was writing and some of the stories he was writing about, he wanted to make some comments about what was going on in the world and going on with the times and all that. And a lot of that stuff got censored for one way or another. And he figured, well, if he did things in a science fiction atmosphere, so basically he's hiding his, whether you do morality plays or just his observation of the human condition or world events or that kind of thing, if he hid it in through a sci-fi environment, it would have an easier chance of being on TV and being watched. And he was right. I mean, sci-fi. That happens with a lot of sci-fi. Star Trek did that. Gene Roddenberry did that with Star Trek. So this was a show that lasted 5 seasons. The first 3 and the 5th season were basically 30 minutes, and it was the 4th season being an hour long. Which I thought there was more hour-long episodes than that, but I'm obviously not remembering that correctly. And of course, this is a show that Sci-Fi Network does marathons for July 4th and New Year's Eve. And of course, I always stop down to watch them, even though most of them I had seen hundreds of times. It's still really cool to watch again. And I made a comment on this past New Year's Eve about seeing 1 or 2 that I had never seen before. It's kind of surprised me that there were some that I had not seen. But we're talking about 156 episodes. I'm sure there's a couple of them that do not get played a lot for obvious reasons, because there's certain ones a network is definitely going to be showing those, because those are real popular ones and all that. So with all that being said, I'm going to open up the floor and have everybody else chime in about this classic TV show.
You're entering the 6th dimension. Twilight Zone. I can't remember a time in my life when it wasn't playing. They used to have, before like sci-fi and all that other stuff, they used to have a block on TV which was totally sci-fi horror night. And it was Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, and God, what was the third one? monsters. And you can tell how each, of course, Twilight Zone being the original, but you can tell how each of the other shows drew from the Twilight Zone. I think a lot of the shows today even have a big dose of Twilight Zone, and I think the times we live in have a big dose of the Twilight Zone in them.
Speaking of burying your social commentary in the Twilight Zone,
yeah.
I thought it was interesting, and I didn't really notice when it happened, but the very beginning of Twilight Zone, of course, they had the windows breaking and, the classic theme song. But then they panned in on Rod Serling, who always had a cigarette in his hand. And it was always swirling around him with that really dark hair and that deep voice. And he was about to tell you how he was going to totally mind fuck you for the next 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Well, later on, the cigarette disappeared. And it was kind of like, it was kind of weird. And then, you get to asking questions as a kid and everything else. And they're like, well, yeah, when he died, I guess it was his daughter who said, you can continue to show the show, but not him with that cigarette. Basically that's what took him from us. We don't want the cigarette shown. So now, I guess in the replays of them, sometimes you'll see the smoke swirling around him, but the cigarette's gone. It's kind of interesting because I remember seeing the cigarette,
Mm-hmm.
But wasn't there a show he did after this one too, like Night Terrors or
Night Gallery?
Night Gallery. That one was good, but I don't think it quite tapped into the success that he got from Twilight Zone. I mean, most of the time when you were watching it, it was always that twist where you were like, what? What the hell is that on the plane? So, and guest stars galore. I mean, I think all of Star Trek was on there at one point. William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy was, George Talkie was.
Oh, God, they were all on there.
Yeah, quite a few. Elizabeth Montgomery.
Oh, yeah, there was an episode with Elizabeth Montgomery and Charles Bronson in the same episode.
Yep. And I liked that it wasn't just a simple story. It was always something that made you think. You know, like the pig face one. You think this girl is going to be so disfigured and so ugly, and when they take it off, you see this beautiful girl sitting there, and you're like, uh-oh. What do they look like?
And you know who that beautiful girl was, right?
Who was the girl?
That was Donna Douglas, Ellie Mae Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies.
There you go. Yep.
Hard to spot her without the accent.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the cement pond.
Definitely beautiful. And then when she's like, I'm so ugly, it was like, oh, wow. So it definitely things that made you think. I can see now how it was.
The Serling twist, there was always one.
Yeah. It's kind of like the 50s version of our Black Mirror. Because it was things you didn't really want to think about, but he did it in an enjoyable way that you didn't really know you were thinking about that, until almost the very end when he was like, look, this is you.
It's a cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, that's the one that always jumps out at me.
Yep. And it's funny that you mentioned Night Gallery, because doing research about this, when it was CBS canceled it, apparently ABC was ready to take it over if he renamed it to Witches, Warlocks, and Werewolves. And he was like,
oh my.
Why?
And he was like, no, because that's really, it made it sound like he was wanting to deal.
Sounds Sounds like
wanted to be a little bit more supernatural and all that kind of stuff, and that was not something he wanted to do. And then here we are several years later, and he does not Gallery, which focuses more on the supernatural than the sci-fi aspects. So,
but it was several years later too.
oh yeah,
Night Gallery
yeah.
is definitely in the 70s.
69 is when it debuted. So yeah,
That's close enough. It's 10 years after Twilight Zone started. Yeah, it's hard to argue the against the influence of that show, and it still floors me. I am amazed every time because it's like I manage to forget every time. But he wrote, God, 3/4 of the episodes of Twilight Zone.
oh god,
Or
yeah,
something like that. I mean, he wrote them. I mean, that's just amazing to me. I mean, and the ones he didn't write, there's some serious names coming in and writing stuff.
Yep.
I mean, some very well-known writers of the time, and wow, it's just mind-blowing how much. I mean, and how different some of the episodes are from each other from one week to the next. It's just the stories can be so different, and they're all coming out of his head, and it's just amazing.
According to this, for the first 2 seasons, he contributed 48 scripts, or 73% of the show's total output. And in season 3, he contributed 56. That's just the first 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm. It's not like he let up after that either.
Right. You know, it's more strange to not see his name attached to story credit than it is to, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You should expect to see his name as story by and not. But although, yeah, there are some really, really powerful names that did some of the other scripts.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the names that I'm always remembering is Richard Matheson.
Oh, God, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The man could write anything, and he was able to do that on this television program. Because you're looking, like you said, it was at first 30-minute episodes, but to tell a packed story in 30 minutes is amazing. And Matheson is probably better known for The Incredible Shrinking Man, or what was the Last Man on Earth?
Yeah.
Yep.
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend
was the book. The first movie was The Last Man on Earth.
Yeah. So they had a stable of writers there, almost comparable to Hitchcock's program. And Hitchcock was not one to write the stories, but he produced them. Twilight Zone was phenomenal in almost every aspect, because they were able to get the twists, they were able to do the comedy. Some of them were comedic in base, yet they toss that twist at you at the end and you go, what the frell is going on? They were very, very in tune with what was going on there. And I too applaud them for everything that they accomplished.
Yep, it set the bar really high, fairly early on in the world of television, and it also kind of, it was kind of the beginnings of TV horror, because so far we've been having trouble kind of defining a genre for this. That's because it defined the genre. It's pretty much its own genre, and the closest thing I can think of to compare it to would be what is generally called weird fiction, or at least was back in the pulp era. It was the really weird horror tales, or stories that were so strange that you couldn't really define them as anything other than horror. And that was Twilight Zone's stock and trade right there. And I mean, it opened the door for anything that came after, pretty much. It pretty much built the door and then opened it, because there was really nothing there before. I mean, when did I remember online I saw something about Dark Shadows earlier. I mean, when did that show start? And it didn't start as a horror series. It started as a straight up soap opera, and on the verge of getting canceled, they're like, okay, we need to do something. We need a twist in this to make this interesting again. Okay, let's make this guy a vampire. We'll turn this into a horror series.
It was 66.
Because it worked for Twilight Zone.
Yeah. You saw something about Dark Shadows, because I shared something that on this date, April 2nd, 1971, was the final episode airing. So that's where you got it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was pretty sure.
Yeah.
As much as I love Tim Burton, I did not care for that movie.
That's another film I have not seen. So.
I couldn't see it as anything other than parody.
Yeah.
And I wasn't interested in a parody of of essentially a soap opera. I mean, the time for that has come and gone. There have been enough parodies of soap operas.
Yeah.
And Seth Rogen is already filming something else. So.
Oh God. Somehow, some way, I'm going to find a way to get Seth Rogen on this show just for you, Les.
There you go.
Why do you hate me? That's what I don't understand.
It'll never happen. Don't worry.
I don't know. I'm going to start a petition.
Oh, wow.
Your 15 minutes will shrink, young lady.
That's true. No petition, no petition.
Especially if you're going to keep doing throwbacks to stuff we were talking about before we recorded. Jeez. Pre-show was a little bit lively this week.
It was.
So are we going to get a bonus episode there, Mikey?
Oh, God, no. Like I said, it was, I mean, honestly, the pre-show was rehashing stuff from last week, so no.
Rehashing from last week, because we're still mad.
We are still mad. And we ain't going to take it anymore.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we are. I mean, but anyway.
Yeah, that's what I say, yeah.
What are we going to do? Sign a petition? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned some of the guest stars. I mean, we already mentioned Elizabeth Montgomery and Donna Douglas and Charles Bronson, but I mean, oh my God, Burgess Meredith, who did several. Jack Klugman did several. William Shatner did a couple. You already mentioned that. Bill Mumy. I mean, this was before Lost in Space, but he did 2 or 3 of those.
God, he must have been young.
Yeah, because he was the kid that had the power. That and everybody had to
obey him.
Obey him. That was him.
Dang.
Art Carney.
Howard.
Yeah. Such a very impressive list of actors.
Carol Burnett.
See, I can't remember which one she did.
Who was that?
Carol Burnett. She was, let me see.
Robert Duvall.
Cavender is Coming. The comic legend stars as Agnes Gipp, a theatrical worker who is assigned a guardian angel. That's the one where she was so clumsy, and it was perfect for Carol Burnett.
Yeah. I mentioned
Agnes Moorehead.
Oh God, yeah, that was an awesome one. That was an awesome episode. I mentioned Jack Klugman, the episode with him battling the pool grate, which was played by Jonathan Winters. It's the first time I ever saw him do a straight performance, and he was great.
I think my favorite episode was the guy who worked at the bank, and he'd rather read than deal with anything. So I think it was during his lunch break. He goes into the vault, locks himself in there, and a bomb comes along and wipes out everybody. Yep. So he's like, yes, I finally have time. I can read all I want. And I think he goes to the library, gets all these big old stacks of books, and he goes to sit down and reads them, and he smashes his glasses.
Burgess Meredith.
Well, I was going to say, wasn't that one of the Burgess Meredith ones?
Yeah.
That would be my luck. Finally have time to read, and I can't find my glasses.
See, I don't know if that one or the story of the obsolete man is my favorite Burgess Meredith one. Both of them were really, really good. This is the one about kind of a future where he's deemed obsolete because he was like a bookstore owner or something like that. He reads books, so he's deemed obsolete, and he's punished to be killed on TV. And or he was killed by his method of execution and all that. And I don't want to ruin the ending of it, but it's such a great episode because he was just like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna die for what I believe in and what I love and all that. And it was that one, and then all the time in the world there was finally time to read, and he breaks his glasses. Yeah.
And the one I didn't get was the one. He goes into like a country town, like this western town.
Okay.
And like everybody's frozen, I guess. To me, it was just a weird episode. It was kind of hard to follow. But I wish I could remember the guy because I think he was like a real famous person who was playing the visitor. But yeah. There were some of them that were just kind of like,
Some of them are kind of out there.
Yeah.
But some of them, I mean, are still appropriate today. It happened on Maple Street. Was it Maple Street? The one where
the monsters are due on Maple Street?
Is that it? Where basically it's all taking place on this one street where everybody basically turns on each other, and then you later find out that it's just it's a plot from an invading force. Basically, all they're doing is they're making us fight each other and kill each other off, and then hey, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Claude Akins.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, Claude Akins. Yeah, that's. I'm trying to remember who else was in that one. Anyway, that's a great one.
To Serve Mankind.
Serve Mankind was our
The Amazing Mr. Tyndall. Is that the one? Wasn't that one of the Meredith episodes?
That may be, yeah. God, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
Yeah, my problem is it's actually been a while since I've sat down and watched any of them.
think they're on Netflix now. We've been watching them off and on. I'm surprised Phil would watch it because it's black and white TV.
Well, if they would hold still long enough, you can get your colors out.
There you go. Will the real Martian please stand up?
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
With Jack Elam.
Which is one of those fun ones where, I mean, the whole episode is just a bunch of people in a room talking.
Yes.
There's literally no action in the movie. I mean, there's some threats going on, but there's no actual action, which is
all the action's off stage. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is pretty awesome. It's all dialogue. Yep. The ones here.
The one I was thinking about is Where Is Everybody? And after reading the synopsis, I can understand now the episode. So.
Okay.
I did it at the time.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to pull the name Earl Holliman out of my head, but looking at him,
Ooh,
I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, Earl Holliman. Yeah. He's done a couple of those as well.
Policewoman.
No, that was Angie Dickinson later on.
But he was the partner.
Oh.
Yeah, he was.
All right, I missed that.
He was also in Forbidden Planet. He was the cook.
Yes. Cookie
the cook.
I don't know how he got that nickname, but...
Yeah, I don't know.
When you're in space a long time, you got to come up with something.
Yeah.
Was it called Masks? The episode about the old man who was dying, who was very rich, and his family. He invited his family to spend, I think it was New Year's Eve, with him, and they were supposed to wear these rather grotesque masks all night until
the reveal.
Until midnight, and then they could take the masks off.
Yeah, I remember that one too. That was scary.
It was.
And you're not going to spoil anything, but that's when they would try to take the masks off, and they had become those people.
Yeah, their face had formed into the designs of the mask, looking at this right now, I did not realize that. I paid that close attention on who actually directed that episode. Ida Lupino.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not know that. You know, honestly, seeing the episode title, I have not seen this actual episode. I've seen the adaptation that was in the movie. Kick the Can.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I have not seen the original version, but I've seen the movie version. Yep. Yep. Of course, the Living Doll. That was a scary one.
Yeah.
With Talkie Tina.
My name's Tina, and I'm going to kill you.
Wonder where we got the idea for Chucky from.
Right.
And of course, that doll is voiced by June Foray.
Would have to be now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
she did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it really damn well.
Oh God, yes. Oh, so many good episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm trying to remember the episode of the one. I'm trying to remember how. It's not one that gets played a lot. It was one where it's all about these people live in an apartment, and it's like it's sweltering hot, if I remember it correctly. And then you come out and find out that at the end of the episode, it was actually quite the opposite. It was a dream that was actually the sun had gone out, and so it was actually freezing, or was it the opposite way? I'm trying to remember now. Yeah. Oh God, I'm so blanking. It's like I said, it's not one of those that they play all that often.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can.
not ringing a bell.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find it.
I mean, it sounds just like the Twilight Zone, but
Yeah, I know. I bet. I'll see if I can find it.
it's interesting. There's at least 2 episodes dealing with ventriloquists.
Yeah, one of them actually starred Robert.
Cliff Robertson.
Cliff Robertson. Yes, thank you. I found the episode. It's called "The Midnight Sun," and the premise is Earth has been shifted out of its orbit and it's going towards the sun. So everybody's basically being burned alive, and then you find out actually at the end of the episode that it's quite the opposite. That it was actually moving away from the sun, and that all you watched for the previous 20 something minutes was actually a dream from one of the characters that was having a fever dream. And guess who wrote that episode? 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
Rod Serling.
Yeah, there you go. Just so many great episodes. It's not even funny.
Pretty amazing show, really.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Which is evidenced by the fact that it keeps coming back.
Yep, got a new version out now. Or if it's not out now, it's going to be out pretty soon. I've already seen a lot of reviews, but I think it is out.
I believe it is out.
On Netflix, right?
CBS All Access.
Oh, that's right, CBS All Access. Yeah.
Who's the host of that one?
Jordan Peele.
Yep.
Cool.
And early reviews have been fairly positive, which is cool to hear.
Yep. Sure is. Apparently there's call for that sort of entertainment again these days. I don't quite know why.
Mm-hmm.
That was sarcasm, people.
Did not pick up on that.
Uh-huh. Also had a pretty decent run in the 80s.
It's had several incarnations. I think there was another one.
Yeah, there's another one in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Thinking there was one about that time. So.
And apparently the current one, the one that just started, has been in the works for a while. They started trying to figure out how to bring it back, like in 2012.
Well, it's good that they didn't rush it.
Well, sure. Because that would have been a big mistake.
Yeah.
And there was the movie, of course.
Yep.
Which, while maybe not great, was at least there's some entertaining moments in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing on the airplane wing, was that the movie?
It was both.
Well,
It was both.
The deal with the movie was that they remade 3 episodes from the series for the movie.
So I remember, was it John Lithgow?
Yeah.
In the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
In the movie.
But
that was William Shatner in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was kind of strange too.
Yeah, you had 4 stories, 3 of them that I know for a fact that they were retellings of classic episodes. You had that one. You had Kick the Can, which I mentioned earlier, and then the episode I had mentioned earlier about the boy with the powers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the first story, which I think was original.
It's a Good Life.
Which is a good one. It's still a good one, though. It's a really good one.
It is.
Yeah. Well, and not surprisingly, given it was written by Richard Matheson.
Yeah.
That was the Vic Morrow story.
Yeah, that was the one where unfortunately he lost his life in an accident on set. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I forgot that. They did the narration in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that they did that. So happy birthday to the Twilight Zone, and glad to see it's back.
Right,
and
and welcome back, right.
Yeah,
for
glad
sure.
to see it's back, and hopefully those that are enjoying the new series that have not had a chance to see the original 50s, 60s version, take some time out and check it out, because you will not be disappointed. You will not. Any final thoughts before we take a break?
Well, like we said, Twilight Zone is on Netflix. But if you're a fan of that kind of thing, I found a place called Shudder. Have you guys heard of that one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good, and it's one of the fairly cheaper streaming services too. So I think Tales from the Dark Side's on there, Outer Limits. I don't think Night Gallery is. Creep
No?
Show.
But-
Tales from the Crypt. All
But-
kinds.
Joe Bob's Last Drive-In's on there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a new
there's
show.
There's some pretty corny stuff on there too. Hobo with a shotgun.
But you know who stars in that one, right?
No,
You hadn't heard of that one?
I had to pass on Hobo with a shotgun. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Why?
No.
Judgy? You're judging by the title. Look at you over there being all judgy.
Come on. It
It's
stars
just
Rutger
Judge Pitt.
Hauer.
Huh?
Come on.
Wolfgar.
Wolfgar.
Roy Batty.
There you go, Roy. Yep. I've seen things.
All right, we got a Blade Runner reference in. We're good.
Yep.
Yeah, threw that one out there.
So, cool. Any other parting thoughts?
It's good watching.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break and be back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks. And leading off is Les.
Thank you, sir. For my first choice from Action Lab comes the Cold Blood Samurai, #1. In this story, feudal Japan has I cannot ever say this word,
Anthropomorphic?
Worcestershire animals.
Animals.
And this is based on Homer's poem, A War of Mice and Frogs. So, in this classic poem, Homer tells about the futility of war and the desire for peace by the Gaijin. In this case, a salamander in Japan when they're invaded by lizards. So, being a reader of Homer myself, I think that this could be fun, and I recommend it highly. Hopefully, it'll pan out for several episodes, and we'll see what goes on.
Sounds interesting.
Yep, definitely.
Yep, it does.
Alrighty. Liz, you are next.
All right, for my first pick, I'm going with a trade from DC. It's Catwoman, Volume 1. This is coming off of the biggest wedding of the year.
Shots fired.
If you want to find out what she's up to, they kind of talk about it, but mainly in this run, this is the first 6 issues. There's somebody who is a copycat of Catwoman, and she's trying to figure out exactly who it is and why they're doing this to her. And could it have something to do with Batman? So, if like I said, if you wanted to see where she went after she was abruptly taken off of Tom King's Batman run, this is definitely a good way to catch up. I will admit, I went into this kind of wanting to hate it, really wanting to hate it, and I kind of liked it. Covers are gorgeous. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And most of the time, especially DC's pretty good about in the trades, putting copies of those in the back where you can see them, and some of the alternate covers. Some of them actually looked like portraits coming off of here. So if you like Catwoman, this should be a good read for you.
I agree with that one.
Go read it right, meow.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. I almost said you gotta be kidding me.
No reason to get catty about it. Jeez.
Folks, you see what I have to deal with every week.
Perfect.
Quit pussyfooting around and tell us what you really think.
Oh, man.
Anyway. Mikey, you are next.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can top that, but my first pick is an Image title, and this is Fair Lady, #1. This looks really interesting to me, mainly because I like this sort of thing. This is kind of a set in a fantasy world, and the main character is actually a young woman who recently joined the army posing as a man, and when she comes back home after the war, she tries to get started as a private investigator, which is a position that is called a fair man. But she's not a man, so that's why the book is called Fair Lady. And obviously, since she had to pretend to be a man to join the army, there's probably going to be some sexism stuff involved. But this sounds like it could very well turn out to be a very interesting high fantasy cop story. So I think it'll be fun.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm interested in this one as well. I am next. For my first choice, I'm going with a one-shot from Marvel Comics. This is part of their year-long Star Wars. I'm not sure exactly how they're categorizing it, but these are one-shots that take place. There's 4 in the Old Republic, and there's going to be some in about, I think, 4 in time in
Rebellion.
the resistance, and we're in the Age of Rebellion right now. And this issue is called Grand Moff Tarkin. It's written by Greg Pott and art by Mark Laming. And this is the story. Basically, is talking about how Tarkin takes over command of the Death Star, and hopefully gives a little bit of his background, because I don't think that's ever really been told. There may have been a novel or 2, but obviously nothing has been done in any live action stuff other than what we saw in Rogue One and then obviously New Hope. So I'm curious to see this, because Tarkin was a pretty cool villain, but of course he gets overshadowed by Vader, understandably so. But then again, I'm a big Peter Cushing fan, so there may be a little bit of a bias there.
Maybe just a little.
Yeah, maybe just a little.
This has been effective for Marvel too.
Yeah, they seem to be been doing rather well, which is cool. Alrighty, Les, you are next.
My second choice comes from American Mythology. This is a book which is going to be a little bit lighter than what we've discussed so far. This is Casper's Spookville, #1. I'm rehashing my thoughts here. I enjoy the cartoon characters having their own books, such as Casper, such as Hot Stuff, Underdog, so many others. And in these collections, or in these issues from American Mythology, you generally have 2 or 3 new stories and a reprint of an older story, which is fine with me. These are just so much fun to read. They're quick reads, and they're enjoyable because the puns that they toss in there are not necessarily adult, but they are more recognizable by adults. In this, you've got Eric Shanauer as one of the artists, and he has been phenomenal in his past efforts. So I'm looking forward to this one.
As long as the puns are better than ours, I'm cool.
That doesn't take much.
No, it does not.
I think we're pretty funny.
We're pretty punny, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, but you laugh at anything, so
I do. I'm a happy person.
you are.
Alrighty, Liz, you're next.
All right. So this happy person's going to tell you a story of doom and gloom.
Because why not?
This title is out of Aftershock Comics. It's called Orphan Age. One day, all over the world, the adults died. I mean, killed over, dropped over, dead. So the kids, kind of sounds like Children of the Corn, doesn't it? The kids are left behind to kind of take care of, themselves and everything else. This one will actually take place in a place called Dallas Town, which is kind of cool because the cover, it shows Dallas marked out and Garland marked out and Richardson marked out. So it's a local story. But so these group of kids that are left behind, a lot of them think that the reason why the adults drop dead and the world is crap is because of them. They had to have done something. So they kind of form their own religion. And our hero of the story, what is his name again? I don't know if they've told us his name. It sounds like he's going to start off running from this fraction of kids, trying to get away from them because apparently he has secrets of his own. And then the writer, Ted Anderson, said it'll finally come to, instead of running from them, they're going to have to face them and the conflict that arises from that. So should be a good story set in a post, how do you say that?
Post-apocalyptic?
Post-apocalyptic.
Worcestershire.
What he says.
You'll say Worcestershire.
Setting. Because, of course, when the adults died, there was no more telephones, nobody to run this stuff. And being 5, you're not going to know how electricity works. So, should be pretty interesting. Like I said, he's wrote some really good stories. So,
cool.
Yep. Okay, Mikey.
All right, my second pick is from Action Lab, and I'm picking Sweetie, number 2. It's real easy to make some faulty assumptions from the title of this book. This is a story of a young woman named Maggie, and she has worked really hard to develop a particular set of skills, which now that she's in high school, now that she's starting high school, she's decided it's time to start utilizing them. This is a really, I really don't want to give too much away with this, but this is a story that turns the magical girl genre kind of on its head. And it's I mean, I don't normally go for like the teenage kid thing in my stories and in my comics, but here it really works well. Like I said, this is issue 2, so jump back, and issue 1 is primarily getting to know Maggie a little bit and what she can do, and issue 2 kind of launches into the story where she finds a friend, and so yeah, this is a very interesting little story.
Cool.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I am next, and for my second choice, I am going with Valiant, and this is Livewire number 5. It's a brand new story arc, and our heroine, Livewire, finds a facility that apparently takes in psiots, and it teaches them how to control their powers. And she is trying to find out if this facility is actually going to be a safe haven for them, or could there be more sinister purposes. So the first story arc's been great. I'm so glad that she has her own book, and the writing has just been top notch so far. And I'm ready to see where we go from here.
Yep, I agree. The first arc was, I think, this is going to sound like weird praise, but the first arc was necessary. And so now I'm looking, it kind of needed to happen, and it kind of needed to happen that way, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Amanda moves on from it.
Right. Okay, and our honorable mention this week.
I've got that one, don't I?
Go on, Happy, tell us about your honorable mention.
Here's another little happy tale. This is The Death and the Return of Superman. This will collect 45 issues to tell this story. And not to rehash last week, but why we were so upset with the movie of the death of Superman. This was the first time he died in comics. It was a really big deal. I think even newspapers ran the headlines that Superman had died, you know. Mm-hmm. Dan Jurgens wrote a really beautiful story to where it really showed the sacrifice and gave honor to the death of Superman. It wasn't just a, one shebang. Like I said, 45 issues to tell this story. The return, it also goes over that, which was kind of interesting in the way that they did it. And I guess when he did die, it was the way they brought him back was the question of, well, couldn't they bring him back this way? So it was kind of neat. They kind of went where the fans were thinking and brought him back the way that they said, that we thought he would. So if you're curious, or if you just want to reread this, like I said, this will collect the entire story of the death and the return of Superman, all collected in a hardbound edition for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is super nice. I don't think they've ever put these two stories together.
No, I mean, they've been collected, but this is actually a new edition, but still.
Yeah.
Usually
it's the death or the return, not
right. Yeah.
put together.
Not all together. So
it's kind of nice to read the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this collecting it for you, it's spread out over so many different issues. And that was another thing. At the time when this happened, comic books didn't do that a lot. It wasn't new cover, 50 covers for one title. But these did have some pretty neat covers. I have them. The die cuts, foil ones. So it's a really, really good story.
And that was back when a character died. We weren't so cynical saying, okay, how long before he comes back? It was just a shock that they actually did this.
Superman, yeah.
I mean, it was, like you said, it made national news.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which, it was a pretty big step. I mean, not a lot of comic books were killing their main cash cows at the time. Yeah, this is probably one of the better Superman stories. And it really showed Superman's morals and character as a whole.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
No.
Don't think so.
Les, do you have one?
No, not here. Thanks, though.
I do want to mention a passing. This is a name that you may not be familiar with, but Mark Alessi died on March 29th. And he was the founder and publisher of CrossGen Comics that brought a bunch of really cool titles back in the late 80s, early 90s. Just some really cool stuff like Ruse and Scion and Route 6666. Unfortunately, it didn't last real long, but there were some really cool stories that were done by a lot of great creators. Some were big names at the time. Some moved on and became big names. But I did want to mention the fact that he had passed, and of course we want to send our thoughts to his loved ones and friends, and thank you for giving us opportunity to read these stories.
Yep.
Alrighty. With that, we will go on to our regular shout-outs. Obviously, thank you, Popco's The Culture Network, for letting us be a part of their podcast network. We'll have a link in the show notes. Definitely check out some of those other awesome shows. So thank you very much. We also need to thank the Potter and Family that was stupid.
Redundancy.
For spreading the word of the fellowship on Twitter. You should definitely go check out some of their shows. And the easiest way to do that is just do a search, hashtag Potter and Family as one word, and just whatever catches your eye, download that episode and check them out. So thank you very much. Obviously, I want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. There will be a link in the show notes to check out some of their EP. There are a couple of their EPs. And obviously, we want to thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We do appreciate your support, as always. We'd love to hear from you. Any kind of feedback, questions, observations, comments, suggestions, complaints, whatever. Please contact us. There's several ways you can do that. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form there that you can fill out. I mentioned earlier in the show that we do have a Facebook page. Feel free to follow us there. And if you're in the Dallas area, just a reminder, April 13th, Saturday at 7 p.m., we're doing the meetup. There's a Facebook event made up there. We're obviously on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us on both platforms. And if you'd like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, by all means, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. And I can be found at TomTC Geek. And wherever you download our podcast, we would greatly appreciate it if you would rate and review us. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We do appreciate it, and we hope y'all have a good week. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,